Emma's hands trembled as she stared at the photograph on Marcus Rothwell's laptop screen. The one she'd accidentally opened while looking for the baby registry they'd been working on together. The photo was dated 3 days ago. 3 days. And it showed Catherine Rothwell, Marcus's supposedly dead wife, the woman whose baby Emma was carrying, the woman they'd buried 2 months ago, very much alive, sitting at a cafe in Paris, coffee in hand, designer sunglasses perched on her head, smiling at the camera. Emma's breath caught in her throat. The baby kicked hard against her ribs, as if sensing her panic. 7 months pregnant, in love with a man who might have been lying to her about everything, staring at proof that nothing was what it seemed. Her eyes dropped to the email thread beneath the photo. Messages between Marcus and Catherine. From yesterday. The day before. Last week. A whole conversation history that made her stomach turn. How much longer do I have to stay away? Catherine. Just until after the baby's born. We agreed. Marcus. I'm tired of hiding. I want to come home. Catherine. Soon. I promise. Everything is going according to plan. Marcus. According to plan. Emma's vision blurred with tears. She pressed a hand to her mouth, fighting the urge to scream. What plan? What had she walked into? The sound of footsteps on the stairs made her jump. Marcus was coming. She minimized the laptop screen with shaking fingers, stepped back from his desk, tried to compose her face into something that didn't look like her entire world was shattering. He appeared in the doorway of his home office, all devastating smile and rolled-up shirt sleeves, holding 2 mugs of tea. The golden afternoon light streaming through the windows made him look like something out of a romance novel. There you are. I made your favorite, chamomile with honey. Emma stared at him. This man who'd held her while she cried. Who'd felt their baby kick with wonder in his eyes. Who'd whispered that he loved her just last night while they lay tangled in sheets, his hands gentle on her swollen belly, his voice raw with emotion. How much of it had been a lie? Emma? His smile faltered. Are you okay? You look pale. I'm fine. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. Just, the baby's been kicking a lot today. He set down the mugs, moved toward her with that careful tenderness he always showed now that she was pregnant. Do you need to lie down? I can bring the tea upstairs. Where's Catherine? The question hung in the air between them like a grenade. Emma watched Marcus's face carefully. Watched the micro-expressions flash across his features. Confusion. Then understanding. Then something that looked like panic before he locked it down. What? His voice was careful. Too careful. Your wife. Where is she? And don't tell me she's dead. Because we both know that's not true. If this is already hitting different, wait until you hear what Marcus has been hiding. Make sure to smash that like button and drop a comment with your theory about Catherine, because this betrayal goes deeper than you think. And subscribe so you don't miss the twisted revelations coming up. Trust me, you're going to want to see how this unfolds. Let me take you back 6 months. Back to when Emma Chen thought the worst thing in her life was $80,000 in student debt and a future that felt like a dead end. Back to when a surrogacy ad offering $150,000 looked like salvation instead of the beginning of her destruction. The Rothwell mansion had intimidated her from the moment she pulled up to the iron gates. Old money. The kind of wealth that didn't need to announce itself because everyone already knew. Emma's thrift store interview outfit felt like a costume, and her rusted Honda looked obscene parked next to the fountain in the circular driveway. Catherine Rothwell answered the door herself, which surprised Emma. She'd expected staff. But there was Catherine, blonde, beautiful, cold in a way that made the spring air feel like winter. You're early. I'm sorry, I can wait in the car. Don't be ridiculous. Come in. Catherine turned and walked away, leaving Emma to follow through a foyer that could have housed her entire apartment. Everything was white marble and crystal and the kind of pristine that made Emma afraid to breathe too hard. Marcus Rothwell stood when they entered the living room, and Emma's breath caught for entirely different reasons. Tall, dark-haired, probably mid-30s, handsome in that sharp-edged way that should have come with a warning label. But it was his eyes that got her. Dark, intense, and desperately sad beneath the polite smile. "Ms. Chen." His handshake was warm, firm. "Thank you for considering this." The next hour was clinical. Medical histories and legal contracts, and Catherine explaining in cool, detached tones about her heart condition that made pregnancy life-threatening. She spoke about wanting a baby the way someone might discuss a business acquisition. No emotion. No warmth. Just facts and figures and expectations. Marcus said little, but Emma felt his eyes on her. When she'd glance his way, he'd look down at his paperwork, jaw tight, hands clenched. The tension between him and Catherine was palpable. They barely looked at each other. Barely spoke. This wasn't a loving couple desperate for a child. This was two strangers playing roles. "We should tell her the truth," Marcus said suddenly, his voice cutting through Catherine's explanation of payment schedules. Catherine's eyes went ice-cold. "Marcus. She deserves to know what she's walking into." He turned to Emma, and the raw honesty in his face made her chest tighten. "Our marriage is complicated. We care about each other, but we're not in love. Haven't been for years. This baby," he swallowed hard. "This baby is our last attempt to build something meaningful. To create a family even if we can't fix ourselves." Emma should have run. Should have seen the red flags waving frantically. Instead, she saw the vulnerability in Marcus's eyes and the loneliness that mirrored her own. "I understand," she said quietly. "Family doesn't have to look traditional to be real." Something shifted in Marcus's expression. Gratitude. Relief. And something else that made Emma's stomach flutter in a way that had nothing to do with the surrogacy. Catherine stood abruptly. "I'll have the lawyers finalize the contracts. We'll be in touch, Ms. Chen." The dismissal was clear. But as Emma gathered her things, Marcus walked her to the door. In the privacy of the foyer, away from Catherine's cold gaze, he stopped her with a gentle hand on her arm. "Are you sure about this? It's not too late to walk away. Are you trying to talk me out of it? I'm trying to make sure you know what you're agreeing to. Carrying a child for two people who barely tolerate each other. It's messier than the contracts suggest." Emma met his eyes. "I need the money. You need a surrogate. Sometimes messy is all we have." His thumb brushed across her wrist, just once, barely a touch. But Emma felt it like electricity. "You're braver than you know, Emma Chen." She signed the contract a week later. By the end of the month, she was pregnant with Marcus and Catherine's baby, created from their embryo, growing inside her body, tying her to these strangers in the most intimate way possible. The first trimester was strange. Catherine was attentive, in a controlling way. Daily texts demanding updates. Nutritionist meal plans delivered to Emma's apartment. Exercise schedules. Supplement regimens. Everything managed with military precision and zero warmth. Emma was an incubator, not a person. Marcus was different. He'd show up at her appointments with coffee and genuine questions. Not just about the baby, but about her. Her art. Her dreams. Her life. They'd sit in the waiting room, and he'd listen like her words mattered. Like she mattered. "Why did you want to be an artist?" he asked one day, during month 3, while they waited for the ultrasound tech. Emma laughed. "Worst financial decision of my life, clearly. That's not what I asked." She looked at him. Really looked. He'd shed his suit jacket, his tie loosened, looking more human than Billionaire. Because it's the only thing that ever made sense. Colors, shapes, emotion on canvas. The rest of the world is chaos, but when I paint, everything aligns. That's beautiful. His voice was soft, sincere. You should start again. After the baby. I could help. Marcus. Catherine's voice cut through the moment like a knife. Emma hadn't even realized she'd arrived. I thought I was meeting you here. You said you couldn't make it. Singapore meeting. It ended early. Catherine's eyes moved between them, calculating, cold. How cozy. Bonding over Emma's hobbies. The air went toxic. Marcus stood, his whole body tensing. Don't do this here. Do what? Point out that you're spending an awful lot of time with our surrogate? Emma wanted to disappear. Wanted to melt into the waiting room chairs and cease to exist. I'll go wait in the car. Stay. Marcus's voice was firm. He turned to Catherine. We'll discuss this later. But later never came. Because after that appointment, Catherine started disappearing. First, it was a business trip to London. Then Singapore again. Then New York for a week. Her texts to Emma became sporadic. The meal plans stopped. The control loosened. And Marcus filled the void. He came to every appointment. Brought Emma's favorite foods without being asked. Noticed when she was tired and insisted she rest. Touched her shoulder when the morning sickness was bad, his hand warm and steadying. His presence became the thing Emma looked forward to. The bright spot in the surreal experience of carrying someone else's child. Month 4 brought late-night cravings and a chance encounter at a 24-hour diner. Emma had driven there at midnight, desperate for pancakes and chocolate milkshakes. Marcus was in a booth by the window, laptop open, looking exhausted. Their eyes met. He smiled, genuine and surprised. Craving? Pancakes. You? Insomnia. He gestured to the seat across from him. Join me? She should have said no. Should have maintained professional distance. Instead, she slid into the booth, and for the next 3 hours, they talked. Really talked. About everything. His architecture dreams abandoned for the family business. Her art aspirations buried under debt. His lonely childhood in boarding schools. Her chaotic upbringing with artist parents who loved her but couldn't pay bills. The diner's fluorescent lights were harsh and unflattering, but Marcus looked at her like she was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. And Emma felt something dangerous bloom in her chest. Where is Catherine? She finally asked, because the question had been burning in her mind for weeks. Really? Marcus's jaw tightened. He looked down at his cold coffee, hands wrapped around the mug like he needed something to hold on to. I don't know. We're not really married. Not in any way that matters. It's a business arrangement. Always has been. Our families merged companies through our marriage. Catherine gets access to her trust fund. I get board votes I need to maintain control. We live separate lives. Then why the baby? Because I'm 36 and terrified I'll die alone without ever building something real. A family. Legacy. Love. He looked up, and the vulnerability in his eyes made Emma's breath catch. Catherine agreed because the optics are good. Stable family woman looks better for her political aspirations. We both get what we need. That's the saddest thing I've ever heard. Is it? I think the saddest thing is that I didn't realize how empty my life was until I met you. The air between them shifted. Charged. Dangerous. Emma's hand rested on the table, and Marcus's fingers moved toward it, stopped just before touching, trembling with restraint. This can't happen, Emma whispered. I know. You're married. I'm carrying your wife's baby. I know. His voice was ragged. But I can't stop thinking about you. I can't stop wanting to hear your voice, see your smile, know everything about you. Tell me how to stop, Emma. Because I don't know how. She should have stood up. Walked away. Protected them both from the inevitable disaster. Instead, she turned her hand over, let her fingers intertwine with his, and whispered, I don't know how to stop either. They didn't kiss that night. Didn't cross the physical line. But they crossed every other line. Emotional. Mental. The connection between them became undeniable, unbreakable, and absolutely forbidden. Month 5 shattered everything. Emma woke to her phone screaming at 4 a.m. Marcus's name on the screen. She answered, heart already racing. Hello? Emma. His voice was destroyed. Broken. Catherine's dead. There was an accident. She's gone. The funeral happened on a Tuesday that felt like the end of the world. Emma stood at the back of the chapel, an outsider in a sea of black. Catherine's family filled the front pews, cold, elegant people who looked like they'd never cried in their lives. Marcus sat alone, shoulders rigid, staring at the closed casket. Emma hadn't known Catherine well. Hadn't particularly liked her. But she'd been a person. A woman with dreams and flaws and a life cut tragically short. And Emma was carrying her baby. The weight of it felt crushing. After the service, Marcus found her in the parking lot. Rain had started, cold, miserable drops that matched the grief hanging over everything. He looked hollowed out. You don't have to stay. The contract has clauses. I'm keeping the baby. Emma's voice was firm. Emma. You just lost your wife. I'm not taking your child too. She stepped closer, rain soaking through her coat. I signed up to give you a family. That hasn't changed. Something broke in his expression. He pulled her into his arms, right there in the parking lot, holding her like she was the only solid thing in his collapsing world. And Emma held him back, feeling the baby kick between them, knowing everything had just become infinitely more complicated. 2 weeks later, Marcus called with a proposition. Move in with me. Emma's breath caught. What? The pregnancy is high risk. You need better medical care, security, proper nutrition. His voice was careful, professional. But there was something underneath. Something desperate. The mansion has guest houses. You'd have your own space. It's just practical. It wasn't practical. It was dangerous. But Emma said yes anyway because being close to him felt necessary. Like breathing. The guest house was beautiful. Huge windows overlooking gardens, a kitchen she could actually cook in, more space than she'd ever had. But it felt lonely at night. Empty. Until Marcus started showing up at her door with dinner. With movies. With conversation that stretched into early morning hours. They didn't talk about the line they were dancing around. Didn't acknowledge the way his hand would linger on her back when he helped her stand. The way her breath would catch when he smiled. The way they'd both lean closer during conversations, pulled together by gravity they couldn't fight. Month 6 arrived with summer heat and a vulnerability that broke them both. Emma was painting in the guest house, something Marcus had encouraged, even buying her supplies, when he appeared with takeout. Chinese food. Her favorite. They ate on the floor because she'd gotten paint on the couch, laughing at nothing and everything, and then the laughter faded and they were just looking at each other. I can't do this anymore, Marcus said quietly. The setting sun through the windows bathed him in golden light. I can't pretend I don't love you. Emma's heart stopped. Marcus. I know it's wrong. I know the timing is terrible. Catherine's barely gone and what kind of person falls in love while their wife is being buried? His voice cracked. But I can't help it. You're everything, Emma. Everything I didn't know I was missing. She should have been stronger. Should have protected them both. Instead, she whispered, "I love you too." He kissed her like a man drowning. Desperate and tender and terrified. Emma kissed him back, her hands in his hair, the baby kicking between them, and nothing in her life had ever felt more right or more wrong. They made love as the sun set, slow and careful and reverent. Marcus touched her like she was precious. Worshipped her changing body with gentle hands and whispered promises. And Emma let herself believe, just for one night, that this could work. That love was enough. They fell into a relationship that felt like a dream. Marcus moved her from the guest house to the master bedroom. They spent evenings preparing the nursery together, painting walls yellow, assembling furniture, arguing about names. He'd fall asleep with his hand on her stomach, feeling the baby move, and whisper about their future. "We're going to be happy," he'd say in the darkness. "All three of us. I promise." Emma wanted to believe him. Needed to believe him. So she ignored the small inconsistencies. The times Marcus's phone would ring and he'd leave the room to answer. The way he'd get mail he wouldn't let her see. The locked drawer in his office. She told herself he deserved privacy. That she was being paranoid. Until month 7 brought a warning she couldn't ignore. Emma was having coffee at a cafe downtown when a woman approached her table. Elegant, sharp-eyed, with Catherine's bone structure but warmer coloring. "You're Emma Chen." "Yes. I'm Julia Reeves. Catherine's sister." She sat down uninvited, and Emma's chest tightened with anxiety. "We should talk. I'm sorry for your loss." "Are you?" Julia's voice was cool. "Because you seem to have recovered remarkably well. Living in my sister's house. Sleeping in my sister's bed. Playing house with my sister's husband." Heat flooded Emma's face. "It's not like that. Nothing happened until after. Save it. I don't actually care about your moral gymnastics." Julia leaned forward, her eyes calculating. "I care about the fact that my sister was terrified before she died. Did Marcus tell you that? Did he mention that Catherine called me the week before her accident, saying she'd made a terrible mistake? That she wanted out of whatever plan they'd made?" Emma's blood turned cold. "What plan?" "I don't know. She wouldn't tell me. Just that she was scared." "That Marcus was," Julia stopped, studied Emma's face. "He hasn't told you anything, has he? You actually believe this is a love story?" "It is." "It's not." Julia stood, dropped a business card on the table. "When you figure out what he's really hiding, call me. Because my sister didn't die in a random accident, Emma. And you're not the first woman Marcus Rothwell has lied to. You're just the first one stupid enough to fall for it." She left Emma sitting there, hands shaking, the baby kicking frantically in response to her racing heart. That night, Emma tried to talk to Marcus about it. "Catherine's sister came to see me." He went very still. They were in bed, his arms around her, her back against his chest. She felt his entire body tense. What did Julia want? She said Catherine was scared before she died. That you two had made some kind of plan. Julia is grieving and looking for someone to blame. His voice was smooth. Too smooth. She's always been dramatic. Unstable. So Catherine didn't call her? Didn't say she was scared? I don't know what Catherine told her sister. We barely spoke those last few months. Marcus pressed a kiss to Emma's shoulder. Don't let Julia get in your head. She's just trying to cause trouble. Emma wanted to believe him. Tried to push down the doubt. But it grew like poison, infecting everything. She started noticing more things. Mail that Marcus would intercept before she could see. Hushed phone conversations that ended when she entered rooms. The way he'd steer her away from certain parts of the house. The locked office drawer that he never opened in her presence. One afternoon, while Marcus was at a meeting, Emma's curiosity overwhelmed her caution. She went to his office, tried the locked drawer. It didn't budge. She searched for the key, in his desk, the bookcases, everywhere, until she found it taped under the desk drawer. Her hands shook as she unlocked it. Inside were financial statements. Bank transfers to offshore accounts. Legal documents about Catherine's estate. And a burner phone she'd never seen before. Emma picked up the phone with trembling fingers. It had one contact saved. C. She scrolled through the messages, her vision blurring with tears. Messages from 3 days ago. 2 days ago. Yesterday. Catherine. Alive. Talking to Marcus. Planning something. How much longer do I have to stay away? C. Just until after the baby's born. We agreed. Marcus. The room spun. Emma grabbed the desk for support, her pregnant belly making her clumsy. She kept reading, each message a knife to her heart. I miss home. I hate hiding. C. I know. It'll be worth it. The inheritance requires a baby. Once Emma delivers, you can come back. Marcus. What about her? What happens to Emma? C. She gets her money and moves on. She knew this was temporary. Marcus. Did she? Or did you make her fall in love with you to keep her compliant? C. No response to that one. Just read receipts showing Marcus had seen it. Emma's hands shook so violently she almost dropped the phone. Catherine was alive. Marcus knew. This entire relationship, the love, the promises, the future they'd planned, was a lie. A manipulation to keep her pregnant and willing to hand over the baby. She heard the front door open downstairs. Emma? His voice called out. Where are you? She shoved everything back in the drawer, locked it, her heart trying to beat out of her chest. Couldn't face him. Not yet. Not until she processed this betrayal that felt like her chest was caving in. Up here. She tried to make her voice sound normal. Just looking for the baby registry on your laptop. Footsteps on the stairs. Emma opened his laptop with shaking hands, pulled up a random website. Tried to compose her face into something that didn't scream that her entire world had just imploded. Marcus appeared in the doorway, and he was smiling. Actually smiling. Holding tea mugs and looking at her with such convincing love that Emma wanted to scream. There you are. He set down the mugs, moved to kiss her. I made your favorite, chamomile with honey. Emma let him kiss her, and it took everything she had not to recoil. His lips felt like lies. His touch felt like betrayal. This man who'd held her while she cried. Who'd whispered that he loved her. Who'd made her believe in fairy tales. All of it fake. All of it calculated. When he pulled back, something in her expression must have shown because his smile faltered. What's wrong? And Emma realized she had two choices. Confront him now and risk everything. Or play along until she figured out how to protect herself and the baby growing inside her. She chose the latter. Forced a smile. Nothing. The baby's just been kicking a lot today. But as Marcus sat down at his desk, started talking about dinner plans and nursery colors, Emma's mind was racing. Planning. Because if Marcus and Catherine thought they could use her, manipulate her, discard her after she gave birth, they were wrong. Emma Chen wasn't a victim. She was a survivor. And she was about to show them exactly what happened when you betrayed the wrong woman. The next 3 days were the hardest performance of Emma's life. She smiled when Marcus kissed her. Laughed at his jokes. Planned the nursery. Made love to him at night while her heart turned to ice. All the while, her mind worked furiously on a plan. She couldn't just run. The contract she'd signed was ironclad. If she broke it, she'd owe them everything, the money they'd already paid plus damages. She'd be financially destroyed and still lose the baby. No, she needed to be smarter than that. Emma started documenting everything. Screenshots of the messages between Marcus and Catherine. Photos of the financial statements. Recordings of Marcus's hushed phone calls that she caught on her phone when he thought she was sleeping. She created a cloud backup that Marcus couldn't access, labeled it innocuously, and waited. On the fourth day, she made her move. "I've been thinking," Emma said over breakfast, keeping her voice light and casual. They were in the morning room, golden sunlight streaming through the windows, everything looking picture perfect. "After the baby's born, what happens to us?" Marcus looked up from his coffee, his expression carefully neutral. "What do you mean?" "I mean, the contract ends when I deliver." "But she gestured between them. "We're more than the contract now. Aren't we?" She watched him carefully. Watched the micro-expressions flash across his face. Calculation. Discomfort. Then he reached across the table, took her hand, and lied right to her face. "Of course we are. Emma, I love you. After the baby comes, we'll get married. Build a real family. This is forever." "Forever," Emma repeated, and smiled like her heart wasn't breaking. "I'd like that in writing." His hand tensed in hers. "What? A prenup? Or, not a prenup since we're not married yet. But something legal. Proving your commitment." She kept her voice sweet, innocent. "I just want to make sure the baby and I are protected. You understand, right?" Marcus's eyes went cold for just a second. Then he smiled, and it was his billionaire smile. All charm, no warmth. "Of course. I'll have my lawyers draft something. Actually, I'd like to use my own lawyer. If that's okay." Emma squeezed his hand. "Just to make sure everything's fair. You always say I should protect myself." The silence stretched too long. Then Marcus nodded slowly. "Sure. Whatever makes you comfortable." That afternoon, while Marcus was at the office, Emma met with an attorney. Not one of the fancy ones Marcus would know. A family law specialist who worked with women in difficult situations. Emma laid out everything, the contract, the messages, the fake death, the manipulation. The lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman named Rebecca, listened without judgment. "This is complicated. The surrogacy contract is legal. But if we can prove fraud, that they induced you to continue the pregnancy under false pretenses after Catherine's supposed death, we might have leverage." "What kind of leverage?" "Custody. If you can prove Marcus and Catherine conspired to deceive you, that they're unfit parents, you might be able to keep the baby." Rebecca leaned forward. "But Emma, you need to understand. This will be ugly. Expensive. They have unlimited resources to fight you. I don't want to fight them." Emma's hand found her stomach, protective. "I want them to let me go. Me and the baby. I want out of this contract with enough money to disappear and start over. And I want them to never be able to find us." "That's a lot to ask." "I know. That's why I need you to help me make them an offer they can't refuse." Rebecca smiled, sharp and knowing. "Tell me what you have in mind." The plan was simple but risky. Emma would confront Marcus with everything she knew. But instead of anger or accusations, she'd make him a deal. She'd disappear quietly with the baby after birth. Never pursue child support or custody or any claim to the Rothwell fortune. In exchange, he'd pay her $5 million, enough to ensure she and the baby were set for life, and sign away all parental rights. Everyone gets what they want. Clean break. No scandal. If he refused, she'd go public. The texts. The fake death. The manipulation. The media would have a field day with Billionaire fakes wife's death to steal Surrogate's baby. His company would tank. Catherine's political aspirations would die. They'd lose everything. It's extortion, Rebecca warned. Technically. It's survival, Emma corrected. And they started this game. I'm just playing to win. That night, Emma waited until after dinner. Until Marcus was relaxed, drinking scotch in the living room, thinking everything was going according to his plan. She sat down across from him, hands folded over her pregnant belly, and said calmly, "We need to talk about Catherine." She watched him freeze. Watched the color drain from his face. What about her? About the fact that she's alive. In Paris. Waiting for me to deliver so she can come home and play mommy to the baby I carried for 9 months. The glass slipped from Marcus's hand, scotch spilling across the hardwood floor. He didn't notice. Just stared at Emma like she'd risen from the dead. "I don't, how did you? The messages in your burner phone. The financial transfers. The travel records." Emma's voice was steady, cold. "I know everything, Marcus. Catherine's alive. You've been lying to me for months. This whole relationship, the love, the promises, the future we planned, was just manipulation to keep me compliant until delivery." "Emma, please, let me explain." He reached for her, but she stood, stepped back, put distance between them. "Don't touch me. Don't ever touch me again." Her voice cracked despite her best efforts. "Do you have any idea what you've done? I fell in love with you. I trusted you. I gave you everything. I know. I know, and I'm sorry." "You're not sorry. You're just sorry you got caught." Emma wrapped her arms around her stomach, protective. "But here's what's going to happen. You're going to pay me $5 million. You're going to sign away all parental rights. And I'm going to disappear with this baby and you're never going to contact us again." Marcus stood, his hands raised in placation. "Emma, you don't understand. The situation is more complicated." Or, Emma continued like he hadn't spoken, "I go to the media. Every text message. Every lie. Every detail of how you and Catherine faked her death to manipulate a surrogate. How do you think that plays out for Rothwell Industries? For Catherine's political career? For your precious reputations? You can't, the contract. The contract is void if it was signed under fraudulent pretenses. My lawyer confirmed it." Emma pulled out her phone, showed him the screen. "I have everything backed up in multiple locations. If anything happens to me, it goes public automatically. So you have a choice. Pay me and let me go. Or lose everything you've built." Marcus stared at her, and for the first time since she'd met him, Emma saw real fear in his eyes. "I can't just, I need time to arrange that kind of money. You have 48 hours. Then I call the press." She walked out, left him standing there, and locked herself in the guest bedroom. Only then did she let herself shake. Let the tears fall. Let the betrayal crush her chest until she couldn't breathe. But she didn't let herself break. Not completely. Because she had to be strong. For the baby. For herself. The next morning, Emma woke to find Marcus gone and a woman standing in the living room. Blonde. Beautiful. Very much alive. Catherine Rothwell looked exactly like her photos, elegant, cold, and furious. "So you're the surrogate who thinks she can blackmail us?" Catherine's voice was ice. Bold. Stupid, but bold. Emma's heart hammered, but she kept her voice steady. "You're supposed to be dead." "Clearly not." Catherine moved closer, and Emma instinctively backed up, hand on her stomach. Did Marcus tell you why we did this? Why we needed a surrogate to carry a baby that could have been created any number of easier ways? For inheritance. The text said. The text said nothing about whose inheritance. Catherine smiled, sharp and cruel. Here's what Marcus didn't tell you, Emma. The baby you're carrying? It's not biologically his. The world tilted. Emma grabbed the back of the couch for support. What? Marcus's brother, James, died 2 years ago. Left behind frozen sperm and a trust fund worth $50 million. But the will stipulated that the money only goes to James's child. If no child is born within 5 years of his death, the money goes to charity. Catherine's eyes glittered. So Marcus and I used James's sperm for the embryo. We just needed someone to carry it. Someone who wouldn't ask questions. Someone grateful enough for the money that she'd hand over the baby without a fight. Emma's knees went weak. That's insane. And illegal. I signed a contract based on fraud. You signed a contract to carry our baby. Which you are. The baby is part of the Rothwell family. We never specified whose genetics. Catherine pulled out her own phone. And before you think about going to the media with your little blackmail scheme, you should know, I have lawyers who will bury you. We'll claim you're an unstable surrogate trying to steal a baby for money. We have documentation of your financial desperation. Your lack of family support. Your history of. I don't have a history of anything. You will by the time my PR team is done. Catherine's smile was venomous. Face it, Emma. You're a broke nobody trying to extort billionaires. Who do you think people will believe? Emma's mind raced. The plan was falling apart. She hadn't counted on Catherine being this prepared, this ruthless. I have the messages. The proof. Of what? That my husband and I had private communications? That we used a legal loophole to access family money? Catherine shrugged. None of that changes the contract you signed. You owe us a baby. And if you try to run, we'll find you. We'll take the baby. And we'll make sure you end up in prison for kidnapping. I'm not giving you my baby. The words came out fierce, primal. Emma's hands wrapped protectively around her stomach. I don't care what the contract says. I don't care about your threats. This is my child. Biologically, it's James's child. Legally, it's ours. Emotionally? Catherine laughed. It's just a means to $50 million. Which we will get. One way or another. The door opened. Marcus appeared, looking haggard, defeated. He took in the scene, Catherine standing over Emma, Emma backed against the couch, the tension thick enough to choke on. Catherine, we agreed you'd stay away until after. Plans change. Catherine turned to her husband. She knows about James. I thought she should understand the full picture before she makes any more threats. Marcus's eyes met Emma's, and what she saw there wasn't love or even guilt. Just calculation. Weighing options. Deciding which move would cost him less. And Emma realized with sickening clarity, he'd never loved her. Not even a little. Every touch, every whispered promise, every moment she'd thought was real, calculated manipulation. She'd been a job. A problem to manage. A surrogate to keep happy until delivery. I want you out of my house, Emma said quietly. Her voice didn't shake. Her hands didn't tremble. She'd moved beyond fear into something colder. Harder. Both of you. Get out. It's not your house, Catherine started. Get out. Emma screamed it, loud enough that both of them flinched. Get out before I call the police and tell them you're harassing a pregnant woman. Get out before I burn this entire scheme down even if it destroys me too. Get out. Marcus grabbed Catherine's arm. "We should go. Give her space." "Marcus." "Now, Catherine." They left. Emma stood there in the empty living room, shaking with rage and fear and heartbreak, and realized she was completely alone. No family. No friends she could trust with this. No resources to fight billionaires with unlimited money and power. And in 8 weeks, she was going to give birth to a baby that 3 different people had claims to. A baby that represented $50 million to Marcus and Catherine. A baby that Emma loved more than her own life. Her phone rang. Unknown number. Emma almost didn't answer. Then instinct made her swipe to accept. "Miss Chen?" A male voice, unfamiliar. "My name is James Rothwell." Emma's blood turned to ice. "That's impossible. James Rothwell is dead." "That's what everyone thinks. But I assure you, I'm very much alive. And I think you and I should meet. Because you're carrying my baby, Emma. And I'm not about to let my brother steal another thing from me." The line went dead. Emma stood frozen, phone clutched in her shaking hand, mind reeling. James was alive. The baby's biological father, who was supposed to be dead, was alive. Which meant everything was more complicated, more dangerous, more insane than she'd imagined. And somewhere in the city, he was watching. Waiting. Planning. Emma's hand found her stomach, protective and terrified. She was 7 months pregnant, caught between 3 people who all wanted her baby, with no idea who to trust or how to protect herself. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty: she wasn't giving up her child without a fight. Even if that fight destroyed them all. Whispered stories, where every whisper tells a story.